Welcome back, everyone, to the EU Gauntlet. Now it's Gore and Trelly instead of J-Mac and Myth. And of course, we are still moving our way up the ranks. Trelly, Gauntlet's always fun. It's been a long time, I feel like, since we've seen and done a Gauntlet, so it's always one it's just a fun format for me. I'm sure it's fun at least a little bit to you. And for the teams as well as they move forward and move themselves up. Now, if you're curious what the hell does a gauntlet mean, maybe you just didn't catch the end of the last one, well, the good news is we have a really good, really easy visual representation of what it is. So what you were just watching, set number 1, was at the very bottom here. Winner of that now plays the Scarabs. Guess what? TBD, the winner of this one plays the Titans. Winner of that plays the Warriors. Winner of that plays Hex Mambo. Winner of that advances to Roll Stars. So that is the overarching goal right now, right? There's something in the horizon for these players to look at. Of course, right now, if you are the Tanuki or if you are the Scarabs, you're looking at winning this one just to move on to the next one, play the Titans, so on and so forth. All of them are best of 3s. And I believe we're going through 3 of them today, 2 of them tomorrow. So if you're waiting for the Wargs and Hex Mambo, you're going to have to wait another day. If you're looking for all the others, Trelly, you're going to get to see them right here. The Tanuki, who we had just seen, players that has it's gone through a little bit of a change. If you were watching the EU SCC towards the end, we actually have a graphic that can show the updated rosters for these. So the Tanuki that you just saw, Streak Up, Calvin, Picarino, April, and Ogabri, as well with a sub of Ice, which is a fantastic sub to have in the pocket. Now, they have eliminated the Olympus Bolts there in the middle, and they'll be taking on the Scarabs, which has also changed pretty dramatically, but a lot of familiar names and a lot of players you've seen on a team together. Echrome, Emilito, Zeros, French Emperor, Deathwalker, and then Sarpei there, listed at the very bottom. A very, very stacked team, it feels like, when you look at player power. But Trelly, one that has, towards the end of the EU SCC and going in towards like relegation conversations, struggled a little bit. In fact, struggled against players like the Tanuki. And so it's definitely creating, I think, something that has a little bit of a spark in the air, right? Because this is not maybe as guaranteed as the names would make it seem.
For sure, and also you have to consider the fact that the Tanuki are riding with some momentum here. They were just able to get a win under their belt. Sure, being at the bottom of the gauntlet doesn't bode well, but in tournament situations, I think being able to build up a couple wins under your belt and use that momentum to continue forward can definitely be a strong suit despite seeding and all those things. So I'm going to put up a little bit of an edge here towards the Tanuki just because of that fact alone, right? Just because they have that win under their belt, and you would assume the Solar Scarabs are coming in dry, at the very least trying to, get some momentum under their belts, or at the very least put a stop. So I think game number 1 in particular is going to be a good idea here for the Scarabs to come out swinging early on.
Yeah, it's a conversation I think we've had with Zapman a few times where he's like, he prefers to play in the prelim tournament before Worlds instead of just going straight to Worlds. And if you look at the history of Worlds he won versus the last one, I think that track record still stands up. Yeah, you maybe want to play a little more, and that's where the Tanuki come into this one. This team, as you just watched, long, lengthy games, accomplished players, still able to eke out the win towards the very end. So this is a team that, when it comes down to it right now, Trelly, we saw some struggles. There's no way to gloss over. You don't hit 55 minutes in a game unless you've been seeing some struggles. And a lot of that is brought by the Bolts playing well, but definitely some things that maybe could create improvements for us, I think, going into this set. What, in your mind, where are their strengths? What are they relying on? And what do they need to worry about that's on the other side?
I mean, what I was watching from the Tanuki was a lot of hesitation, I think, trying to figure out, hey, should we be able to pull this Fire Giant? Are we going to go for a 50-50? Should we go for the outburst? Should we look for the fight? Things like that. And I think that's something that accomplished teams can do very well, but if you're a newer form team, or at the very least, if you're playing a bit nervous, can go into your situation where, damage numbers wise, I know it was a big conversation. April, sure, his kill stat difference looked pretty flashy, but was not getting involved very much. And again, I think that is a bit of hesitation towards those team fights. If you're going to sit around Fire Giant and not go in for the confirmation or not go in for the pull, your siege starts to look a bit sloppy, things like that. It wasn't terrible, of course. I think they're just happy they got the win. But if we're looking for things to correct in game number 2, concise calls.
Yeah.
Pick a call, stick with it. Even if it's bad, it's better than doing, just sort of going through the motions and attempting something, not the correct play.
I know there was a conversation I think Mifflin had at the very end where it was 13.9 thousand damage on a 7/3 KD.
Yep.
And admittedly, when it turned 10-3, that damage numbers jumped up 4,000 in just that one fight. And maybe that's the kind of play we want to see. Of course, you're going to have a little bit of difficulties because the team you're taking on the other side, the Solar Scarabs, Fringe Emperor is going to be playing in the jungle over there. And of course, there's a lot more accomplished names on this roster just in general. Zeros, a lot of people would recognize because he has been on some of the most successful teams in the EU SCC for years. Same thing can be said for Deathwalker and E-Chrome. And Emilito, someone who has been kind of drifting in and out of the SMITE scene since his dominant days, coming in as their support, creates a very interesting dynamic, I think, over in the duo lane. And Charlie, there's just a lot about this team that raises eyebrows, but in a good way.
Yeah, I just think of the Rock meme where he's got his eyebrow and he's like looking at the team, and I think that tends to be the case as well. I'm excited to see how they decide to perform together as a unit. It always does feel good. I think that E-Chrome has always impressed me in the duo lane. Throwing him with Emilito on support should create some interesting dynamics. I was talking a lot about trying to stunt the momentum here of the Yomi Tanuki and getting a first blood in duo lane, or at the very least finding some pressure, looking for an invade, things like that, is exactly the kind of conversation I'm talking about. So I do expect to see some pressure out of the duo lane here for the Solar Scarabs. Whether that be looking for kills or not, you know, that really does depend on French Emperor where the jungle wants to play. But I'm not imagining low pressure compositions. I want to see, you know, as good of clear as you can get. Find some of that fights pretty much immediately, like before 2 minutes, and, you know, trying to hold that pressure throughout the entirety of the first match. I'm
really interested to see what Zeros is going to pick up. It feels like Zeros, for quite a while now, has not been picking the things that we're quote-unquote used to, right? The quote-unquote meta that we would have in mid. And so we'll see what he ends up locking in here as we can jump into picks and bans for game number 1. And when I say things like that, Shelly, I mean he loves playing his Chronos mid. Tiamat, I think, is on that list, and Tiamat's definitely more meta than not.
Right.
But there's definitely been quite a few others. The sands have been shifting a lot lately as well, right? I mean, even what we saw, you know, Masters, things were already starting to change. By the end of it, we started to see a lot of different gods, not just in mid, but I think all around, supports that we wouldn't have expected to see dominating everything. Ganesh was suddenly on top of things. And so there's definitely a lot of wiggle room here. I think for the Scarabs, we got a little bit of homework here on the Tanuki, but we can try and figure out where they're going to go. Raven, get rid of that guy. Look, I mean, he's just a nuisance. If he's in any of your games, you're playing ranked, you got the ban power, and this guy's not gone, you're either first pick and really hoping, or you're making a mistake. It's one of the two that comes up. Yorman Gondar, I think, has fallen in that conversation a couple of times. We saw him a lot towards Masters as well. And then the Freya, all banned out here by the Scarabs. Other side, the Kali, Marty, and the Thor, leaving Baba Yaga open for a first pick.
So unfortunately, Zeros isn't going to give us some of his extra spice. Baba Yaga is about as bland as you can get at this point.
As bland as the beans of the skin.
Yes, but still very strong. Just because the beans are bland does not mean they're powerful, and in this case, I think Papa's going to be just fine in the mid lane. Followed up with the Kuzenbo and a possible Hachi Hover, which looks like it will be locked in. So that's a nasty either A, duo lane, or throw the Kuzenbo into solo, which we've seen time and time again. I think Kuzenbo is just a nuisance. He's very annoying. He can sort of create space with his ultimate, or just be a nuisance to the backline, right? Run in a Hunter, try and make their life miserable, pop those shell spikes. Suddenly you've got 2 Nenes on you, and it's annoying to try and deal with. So the first 2 for the Yomi Tanuki are already looking like not going to be a fun time.
The thing I'm really interested in, and it's specifically looking at E-Chrome, more than likely going back to the Heimdall. It's a pick that, for the longest time, if you've been watching the EU SCC, this was a god-player combo that essentially meant the game was done. But, and this is something I was hoping to look up before I had it pan back over to me, but it's just the fact that I feel like the last few times, I've been saying that a lot lately because it was true for like 2 straight years.
Right.
It hasn't felt as true lately. It feels like that Heimdall, sometimes like he's a safe pick, does decent amount of damage, sometimes can pop off. But that consistency has not been there the way that it was in the past, and that kind of worries me, I think, a little bit going into this.
Well, I think, you know, when Heimdall was in his prime, it was when you didn't really want pressure in duo lane. You were just going to sit back. You were going to have safe farm. If you could get to level 20 with 0 deaths, that was the best Hunter to pick. In this case, I think you've got an Ares, right? You want a little bit more pressure, or you want bead spread, which Heimdall does provide, so it seems like that's what the Solar Scarabs is looking for. Lock in a Loki right behind it, and you've got a lot of the members of the Yomi Tanuki trying to hold on to those beads. add a Hebo into the mix, you want to use Crushing Wave aggressively, right? If you're ulting out, if you're forcing Hebo to use his ult defensively, you take away a lot of his engage, you take away a lot of his damage. So probably a smart call here for the Scarabs to focus on not only that beats burn, but anyone who can W key, anyone who can apply pressure to the carries on the side of the Tanuki.
Not only that, I mean, that's your only CC immunity if you're Hebo, right? And so all of a sudden that Ares ult gets a little more frightening, and like you said, if you're trying to use that ult aggressively, man, you better hope those beads are up every single time, because that Ares is going to be looking for you. It does feel, though, Scarabs, I mean, you know, Baba Yaga, that definitely falls in line of, okay, that's pretty meta right now, and Zeros likes her, so it works out both ways. Heimdall, kind of, sort of in the meta. I mean, Hunters were a really weird conversation because it felt like we had two of them and then there was everybody else anyway. And Heimdall falls into the everybody else, but it's really good for Ikro. But then the Ares, the Loki, and the Mulan, I mean, all three of those are one really good counter pick and then two picks that are just, we like playing this god. This is the kind of play style that we like to bring. The other side, you see the Hachi, you see the Hebo, you see Tiamat, and you're like, okay, these guys were running at least a little bit of a tier list while they were grabbing these gods.
Yeah, you can see the Tanuki actually, pretty much all their CC looks to be heavily implied with knockups, right? The Kuzenbo ultimate, of course, you got the Ox form from Sun Wukong and Hebo. All that aggression, you want the knockups. The Solar Scarabs, just about everyone has some form of knockup immunity built into their kit. It seems like they're trying to deal with that amount of CC and just hold their ground. But what I also see is they've got a four key style composition, which means you're playing off ults. If you don't have your ultimate up, you're staying back. If you're not getting value off of that ultimate, you're staying back. I mean, Ares is pretty much just the ult at some points, right? The chains don't provide that much CC.
As we get ready, and we are going to jump into game number 1 here, Charlie, I'm going to admit something. You said a 4-key style game, and I was like, okay, here's the 4 keys that like the 4 key points that it's going to be, and then you were like, yeah, they just press their ults, and I'm like, that makes way more sense, because that is, I mean, much like you highlight, that is what this comp wants to do. And so for those of you who are just tuning in towards the end of it, it's Gore, it's Trelly, it's Doug, and of course it's game 1, Scarabs and Tanuki.
They lost a minion.
They lost a minion.
Echrome started to walk for Chester and said, nope, I'm going to let him go. So he's going to go on back to the chest camp. You'll notice, probably not going to hit level 2 after a minion. Got to clear 1 extra one. Doesn't really mean anything because the Tanuki were not available to step up. But 82% in favor of the Scarabs. That's that name power for you. I mean, that's got very little to do with how much we've seen them play, considering we just watched the Tanuki. It's all just, oh, I know Echrome, I know Amelito, I know Zeros, I know Deathwalker, I know French Emperor. Those guys are going to win.
What, in your mind, does 82%, like if you're quantifying it, and you know, you're the Tanuki, you win 18% of this game.
Yeah.
What does 82% mean in that, in like game circumstances to me? Like obviously it's a win, I think, in my mind, but like how much dominance is that?
Yeah, I don't
lose like a Gold Fury.
I was gonna say, if you're 100-0 is like getting blanked, right? You get 0 kills, you couldn't even step up to your buffs. 82% has got to be at least getting first blood with Echrome. Has the teleport. You'd think to get away, but it looks like April was waiting for it. Didn't have the damage, but at the very least, got some good poke into Echrome there.
Yeah, put the fear of water in him.
Oh yeah.
Make sure that he knows it's not always going to be safe, especially leaving Crystal. I mean, that is a very standard Heimdall, I want to say, disengaged spot, right? You have the option to run to the tower, option to run to the jungle. It creates a block between you. But if you've been playing against him a lot, and trust me, Echrome plays a lot of this god, you've played against him if you're in Europe. Feels like they have a little bit more options to figure things out. Ogabri needs to figure something out over here, but he just does not have the disengage. The minions, they tank a little bit. French Emperor, though, still gets first blood, gets the damage with duo lane. Pressure is on Immel, able to walk out just barely, and they're looking to turn some damage around. Not a lot in terms of getting a kill on this. Calvin overstays is welcome. They stay alive, manage to avoid giving up a first blood over to the Tanuki, instead picking it up for French Emperor over in the solo lane.
Yeah, right when we panned over to solo lane, I heard the transform voice line, so Ogavri either A, tigered in, or doesn't matter. Cancel that out immediately, and once you don't have that transformation, you're just going down. So Deathwalker gets the assist, French Emperor gets that first blood, trying to finish up that Transcendence as quickly as possible. And this is what I was talking about, sort of trying to stunt the momentum of the Tanuki. First blood as quickly as you can. I thought it would be more maybe over in duo lane, but hey, if you're a Loki and you can find pressure, get it anywhere. And in this case, right side of the map, Wukong usually one of the safer soul laners, but like I said, use that transformation right before a Loki shows up to lane, you're going down.
Now that he's level 5, probably not happening.
Oh yeah,
over there.
He's good now.
I mean, look, you could Tiger form in and still make it out of there with the amount of time that buys. Immel, blink over the wall in order to fight for the shield buff. Keeping presence known as pressure on the purple buff is applied over on left. The flames end a little too soon. His cooldowns aren't going to work out. Streak Up's just brought it into the tower. Is going to secure that one. French Emperor is rotated in, but so is April. With the Hebo here, the damage could be massive. Knock up not going to affect him, but the crushing wave has the damage and the close gap necessary to get the kill. Now a push under the tower for French Emperor. What a great play in the water hands. Give a double over to the Hebo.
I mean, if April's beads were down, I can see why French Emperor went so hard for that kill, but he didn't have the stun. The Vanishes didn't do enough damage, and of course, once he was able to bead and walk away, beautiful play by Calvin just to say, hey, you don't have any beads, do you? This Loki started blink. I'm going to push you underneath the tower and give a second kill over to the Hebo. That's a traumatic start there for the Solar Scarabs. I guess not really the start. You get first blood, but you put it on French Emperor, who goes down immediately, and now there's a 2-0 Hebo you got to deal with. It's going to be a scary sight, and I've got some bad news. He's only going to get stronger.
Yeah, that's the scary thing about him. Put a Hebo in a hyperbolic time chamber. He's a happy boy.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, doesn't even need it right now, right? I mean, 2-0. Gets you some items online early. Hasn't finished a tier 3 just yet, but has what he needs to get the damage out there. Meanwhile, Chelly, looking towards the other side, Loki is definitely one that we will see constantly, I think, throughout this game. There's not going to be a moment where we're like, I don't know, he's starting to fall off. It's the question of whether or not he can keep up that pressure, but Zeros, E-Chrome, I mean, honestly, even Immel and Deathwalker to a little bit, they need a little time to get online to the high performances that we've seen from them in the past. Baba Yaga loves later games. Hunters in general love later games. So Deathwalker getting a little aggressive now and applies some pressure out there, but it's going to be a lot of moments where I think Scarabs have to play it patiently.
Yep, trying to get to late game is not a bad idea here, just because, again, I think this Ares pick does fall off a bit the later the game goes. Everyone's going to have that built-in CC immunity into their kit in some way or another, so that Ares ultimate is going to get worse with time, but if you just need a little bit of engage to try and chase down, and that does seem to be that the Solar Scarabs have drafted their composition, right? Emilito blinks in, gets a big pull, whether that's beads, CC immunity, or just an escape tool. You're going to be forcing something. Who goes to the back line then? Oh yeah, Deathwalker and French Emperor. They still do have those ultimates to try and chase down some of those targets. So I don't think Emilito's holding the weight of the world with all this engage. He just has to get one or two key abilities down for the rest of the team to be able to dive. And because they've got Zeros and E-Chrome on these relatively safe carries, they should be able to fend for themselves. They don't need a heal-oriented support. If Zeros gets in trouble, there you go. He blasts off away. He's got the house. First of the extra shielding. These carries should be just fine. But if you want to flip the script and analyze both compositions, Tiamat's about as safe as you can get in a mid lane mage. And of course, what's Hachiman got? Get out of jail free card. That cavalry charge is going to be able to zoom him away essentially across the map. It's not like either one of these teams have an ease of engage when it comes to trying to track down these carries.
I think I'm keeping my eyes on the supports, right? Kuzenbo, a blink push, helped get a kill earlier. Blink ult from Ares was going to be pretty important to me. You know, Hebo had 30 seconds left on the cooldown. Maybe could have been something massive. E-Chrome in a little bit of trouble over on left. The Scarabs trying to apply some of that pressure in mid. No one is going to be able to do it too successfully. A little bit of poke thrown Picorino's way. Stays a little longer, E-Chrome. I thought we were going to see Calvin go in, but instead successfully channels his back. Doesn't allow the Tanuki to get heal, but the pressure, Trelly. The Tanuki are still looking for it.
They certainly are, trying to force at least a relic down, which E-Chrome did beat, which means he has to be worried about if Calvin goes in for a blink. It's actually Emilito, though, sieging forward, just to be a bit of a nuisance. Probably because French Emperor is nearby. This Loki had an assassinate, but decided not to use it. That's probably because Ecrum didn't go back to base, didn't really get enough health back, and wasn't really interested in trying to find a scrap on the left side of the map. I am interested in Gold Fury pressure, considering these ADCs. One has went for more of a stacking build. Ecrum's going to take a while before he wants to fight, but Streak Up essentially comes out of the gate with his Aussie online, has some decent attack speed. Could be some pressure towards that Gold Fury. You got the burst. Once April shows up, if this Hebo gets a crushing wave off, that should be easy confirmation. So Solar Scarabs are going to need to keep their vision, I would say, relatively high around this Gold Fury just so it doesn't get snuck on them. And Melito actually has to face check it just to make sure that no one is nearby. And when Ecrum's going in for his purple buff.
Well, he's going to successfully secure it. Maybe even a pull onto Calvin. No, the CC immunity from the watery grave makes sure the Kuzenbo isn't pulled by the no escape from Himmel. So 2 pretty big ultimates off the board. But the push still there for Kuzenbo. Gets a little extra damage onto Himmel. But it is just that. A little bit of poke. And nothing too serious. Trelly, you mentioned Gold Fury. I'll look at just gold. 900. Not even that much sustainably for the Scarabs. And so small lead, 9 minutes in. It feels like right now the Hebo is the heart and soul. Maybe a little bit to Calvin, have to give some credit where credit's due. But if April is in the area, April is able to get some damage down, it can change the pace of a fight for the Tanuki. And unfortunately for them, the Scarabs just haven't been giving them the opportunity to really showcase what it can do.
Yep, it's been a lot of checking your corners, right? You don't want to find a Hebo around, get knocked up with a water spout into a crushing wave. Not going to explode well, but Picarino, again, we saw this last game. The Tablet of Destinies maybe making a little bit of a return build-wise. Hasn't been in the meta for quite some time, took some nerfs. The Book of Thoth that usually follows up with it also took some nerfs, so not something that Zeros is building into. He's just going with the Charon's coin, but Picarino, you're going to see this Tiamat going for more and more poke, trying to get that tablet stacked up, trying to get that extra true damage, which will scale very well into the late game, but what that does mean is at the moment, this Tiamat not doing much damage, probably not looking to fight anytime soon, but a blink in, pushing in Hemelito, but there's not much follow-up damage.
Yeah, Hemel even has ult if necessary. 4 members of the Tanuki nearby. Chains are good to create some peel.
He took nothing.
Yeah, I mean, he walks away like it's nothing. Bolster defenses. Look, this is maybe one of the most sleeper abilities, I think, in Smite with what it can give you. Something that's going to help Immel. He gets aggressive here, locks down Calvin. There's going to be French Emperor goes in for the stun damage. Is there the flames? And the chains will be enough. And that's 1 over to Immel. Now the chase down is on for the Hebo. Waiting for some CC.
He timed it wrong.
Oh, and unfortunately, April uses the ult, gets out of there. Now Immel, fish out of water. Surrounded by 2. The chains do enough to get him out of there. Once again, that bolster defense is enough to let him walk away. So they get the kill. Could have been 2. But Slippery is the water god there in Hebo. And now it's tied up 2-2, 11 minutes in. Still a gold lead, small but there for the Scarabs.
Yeah, Hemelito, I'm going to say it was a bit greedy. He wanted the beads, so he was like, I'm going to hold it to the very last second, be able to grab this. But at the very least, if you get that ult off, you force the crushing wave a bit earlier, and maybe someone's able to chase down, but I get it. He wanted to force out that crushing wave before a chain came back up just so he could get them both down. And instead, Pro gets out just fine. But hey, crushing wave's down for a bit. Maybe that opens up some doors for French Emperor to find some aggression. But I've been talking about stacking Soul Eater for the Loki coming through next. Keep that on tap with a Deathwalker who goes in for Prophetic Cloak. There's going to be a lot of stacking done this game. Doesn't mean that aggression has to be put on the wayside. We still have seen that both the Tanuki and the Scarabs look for kills whenever they, approach themselves. But still, you'd rather sit back and get these items evolved so you get the extra passive effects. That usually is the reason for building some of these items. And it seems like the same scrap that started the last engagement, the fight towards these oracles, is going to begin again. And Hemelito, instead of getting blinked on, just sits back to get some poke down and wants to act as a moving ward. But it's the beacon that is going to go the way of the Tanuki. They step forward, and they don't care about the Scarabs.
Now, first beacon. Good little spot to fight, but not the end of the world. Blink over the wall. Chains don't connect, but there's the ult from Immel. Looking for the pull. Couple of beads, couple of CC immune ults thrown out. Only Calvin gets pulled in. Now Calvin leading the way alongside April. Streak up. Even Picarino rotating over, but they're going to fall back, Trelly, playing it safe and confident. Couple ults used, beads down from April. Immel playing the long con, right? That's the way you have to deal with an Ares sometimes. Setting up for the next fight. There's going to be a lot down for the Tanuki whenever Immel does get that ult back up and wants to re-engage.
There's a blink, though. April had it. Crushing Wave was also available. Did not end up going in, but Ecrom actually teleports in. Tries to get some good damage, but a chain is a little bit out of the way, so I don't think anyone wants to dive that far. Maybe a Loki who just stepped over a ward. Calvin knows this is coming, but how much damage does French Emperor have? Not enough to go underneath the tier 2, yeah. And the Kuzubo lives to see another day. But I love that TP in from Ecrom again. At the drop of a hat, could just teleport in, use that Bifrost aggressively to try and find a kill onto Calvin. But the Kuzenbo can be a very slippery turtle at that.
Not even enough pressure. I was wondering how they were going to set up. Maybe try to take a tower. I mean, Trelly, we kind of got used to this towards the end of Masters. It feels like tier 1s lately. Harder to knock down, and it's more so just getting aggressive enough, having enough control that you're able to withstand that damage. All of them still standing. So all 12 towers on the map. Tanuki having taken maybe a little bit more damage towards their own. But that's all general. So instead, you have to turn your eyes towards objectives. I mean, at this point, right, you can't rally around the towers. You don't necessarily have maybe any free spots. Pyromancer's up and available. Quite a few members of the Tanuki over towards the right-hand side. A lot of damage available for them. They're not going to pick it up just yet. That same kind of mentality has to be applied to the Gold Fury. Plenty of options for a team. But a team that is technically like 1,600 gold down. Maybe needs to find something like that Gold Fury to help even things up, get their name just into a more favorable position. They're not really in a bad spot. I don't think either team is. I mean, it's 2-2. It's really just about opening that door.
And I think I can't tell if this is one of those games where if the door opens, the floodgates will just roll through.
Yeah.
Or if it's still just going to be...
if it's just like a regular door.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's going to be a lot of just regular picks and there's no water at the end. Looks like ult for ult here. Calvin's got no problem with that trade. That is a lot of the engage there from Emelita that will be gone for the time being. But again, that Gold Fury I was bringing up, Pyromancer also could be a topic of discussion. Has not been looked at by either one of these squads so far. And I guess in this case, you can look towards some of these stacking items. Deathwalker only has 10 on his Prophetic Cloak. The Soul Eater completely done for French Emperor. But that Tablet of Destinies I brought up earlier for Picarino, probably the reason this Tiamat hasn't been getting too involved. Not really looking too stacked up at the moment.
We'll streak up. Triple chained. And the damage should be there from French Emperor. Stun not going to connect. Dash is good from streak up. And then April comes in with the Crushing Wave, forces French Emperor to fall back. Immel still leading the way, wants some help from Ecrom, but Calvin with a push back, slows things down, forces the Scarabs to rethink their engage. I was thinking with positioning from French Emperor, maybe opened up a conversation around a Gold Fury. But the Beacon going to be coming in relatively soon, about a minute and a half. So maybe somewhere you need to be a little more careful with French Emperor. Bullied, shoved against the wall, but Trelly, once again, they're just walking away.
Yeah, it was a blink, slow bit of aggression, but no one was able to chase it down. So I've seen a lot of that from Calvin. Just, hey, I'm going to blink in just because I can. I want Prophetic Cloak stacks anyway, so might as well just try and find some extra damage. Ogre barely misses the Tiger Stun there because of an extra Harpy. Maybe we get some more aggression towards French Emperor if it does connect, but does not. So the Wukong isn't going to find any sort of kill pressure there. And this is looking more like vintage Deathwalker. Back when we used to cast his SEC games pretty consistently, it was a lot of, I'm going to sit in my lane, I'm going to proxy farm wave until I hit level 20 before anyone else, then I'm going to rotate in and make everyone's life miserable. Deathwalker has not been doing damage to anyone if it wasn't this Wukong, right? This Mulan has been sitting here in lane. Not to say that Ogre hasn't, they have both been sitting here in lane, but last time we saw Ogre, he was on Thor, making some massive rotations in with those big ultimates. This is a different change of pace. The Wukong doesn't really have that same level of CC, and because of that, why not AFK over in solo lane? If you're not fighting over Pyromancer, if you're not pulling an FG, or of course, if you're not looking at this Gold Fury yet, you might as well just farm up, and that's what they've been doing. And it just looks good because they have some decent damage. If they get to carries, sure, they'll be able to do damage, but
Yeah.
the carries are so far away.
You might, if you wanted to, be able to rotate in for the beacon, right? I mean, that's another point of contention, but I look at the mini-map and there's not a solo laner in sight. They both have teleport, although it is down right now for Deathwalker. We'll see if either make their place known. Emil up into the ult, tries to go for the pull. Instead, pulls a few ults and makes the Tanuki play defensively. It is a game of capture the flag. Zeros tries to lend some damage in there, but it is the Tanuki still in control of the beacon. A lot of members hovering around, but an early rotation from the Wukong makes the difference here. Deathwalker comes in late, and late it is. Beacon goes the way of the Tanuki, and now Deathwalker trying to walk away. Knockups, good damage is there, but Ogre is the one who's standing at the front, shrugs it off like it's nothing. Now it's up to the Scarabs to try and get something else to go. Do they go for a Cold Fury bait? And it seems like the Tanuki are going to bite down on it. Blink forward from Emil. Tries to get some chains out there. Tries to lock him down, but Trelly, they're getting read like a book. The Tanuki just know what to expect. They're juking them out. They're dodging what they need to avoid. And the Scarabs just cannot find their leg up, despite the fact that they've been farming better.
Yep, yeah, Blanket from Emilito does not connect with the chain. No beads were used, and in that case, you said that Tanuki have no reason to be afraid, and that can't transform into a Gold Fury fight. I did like that the Soul Laners got active, but Deathwalker got out-rotated. Calvin had a beautiful push on his Zeros, waiting for that home sweet home to go down. Was able to pull the beads, force the Baba Yaga back, and you get that second beacon going the way of the Tanuki. Of course, the Solar Scarabs wanted to try and force a fight, but they just had no leg to stand on. Who's going to walk up to that Gold Fury scared when there's no Ares Blink, when the ultimates are down, when your relics are missing from your carries? The Tanuki make a smart call, and they decide to back up and take their small win. In the meantime, though, these carries are starting to get some of these items online. I was wondering how April's build would go. I think the jungle Hebo is always interesting. Do you decide to finish that Doom Orb? Do you look into percent pen early on? Looks like no. Focused more so on killing carries is the call. That Spear of Desolation, that Tier 2 Doom Orb, and of course, the Rod of Tahuti means that April is still a threat to just about anyone on the map, but the squishy characters, Zeros, French Emperor, and Echrome are really the ones that have to watch out for this Hebo damage.
Calvin, oof, looked for a push. Unable to find it. It is, I think, much like you said, especially, it's been a quiet game for the last few minutes, right? 2-2, there's definitely been some skirmishes, one much like what we're seeing now. The Hebo is where I keep my eyes because that damage can be a little sneaky. But like you mentioned, and as Emilito is honestly generous enough to showcase for us, not doing a lot to the tanks just yet, right? A lot of damage. If that's literally any other member of the Scarabs, maybe not Deathwalker, probably a kill. And we'll see what Zeros' build has some pin in it, what it's able to do, especially with Calvin standing up front. Has to reflect a lot of that. Has to use the Watery Grave to disengage and get away. Deathwalker just a little wide on the pull. And the Scarabs have to slow down their onslaught. Betrelli, they've slowly been amassing their gold lead. No big objectives taken just yet, but 2,500. And now it looks like it could be the first Pyromancer pull, or maybe just a bait, get the Tanuki to come in. They've got the damage to burst the objective if needed. It's just whether or not the Tanuki take the bait. The presence, though, just the overwhelming presence of the Tanuki is enough. Ward the Scarabs away, and what I thought was a sure thing, the Pyromancer stays standing, and no bodies hit the ground.
Yeah, I think there's too much HP gone from Emilito there. If you have a full HP Ares, you're probably going for the pull just to see what you could find, but because Emilito's so low, did not seem worth it to try and go in for the full pull, and they do decide to back off. I'm surprised that Ogre ended up blinking into Echrome there. No beads on the Wukong. Blink and teleport. If he gets sent through the realms, that's a dead Wukong, and the fight is lost. That might not even be a pyro pull. That could turn into a fire. But in this case, was not able to find it, and Echrome actually loses his beads for just about nothing. Ogre was able to hold on to that Somersault Cloud. But level 20s are starting to come through, Gore. Only 4 kills so far this game, most of which were 10 minutes ago. It's been very slow. Some sort of fighting, but no blood spilled. There is a possible pull towards the Gold Fury here. It looks like the Scarabs, they've got decent vision with Echrome, and Zero's playing zone duty. They might just try and burst before anyone shows up, though.
Well, this is a good time to try and burn it. Beacon's going to be spawning in a couple minutes. The Titans will be unleashed just after. So get the Gold Fury while it's free and open. Not a soul from the Tanuki steps forward. And with the ward vision the Scarabs had, might have been a death sentence if they tried. So the Scarabs not just farming better, but now with the only objective, neutral objective that is, in the game taking their direction, it's going to help things out. And Charlie, in the meantime, they've also got the map state in a slightly more favorable position. We were talking, or at least I was talking about 10 minutes ago, about how hard it is to take down some of these Tier 1 towers. Tier 1's in mid still standing, but Tier 1 in left and right for the Tanuki has finally been taken down. Meanwhile, the Scarabs have only lost their solo lane tower. So a little bit more pressure on the map. That applies to that farm. That gives them some of this lead. And if you're the Tanuki, the gold difference is actually starting to weigh down on you.
Certainly is. Those extra upgrades will come in handy once we start to look towards some actual objective fights. The Pyromancer is still a big deal. Trying to be able to pick up that Runic Bomb. Could look towards extra burst. I already talked about how April with that crushing wave has easy confirmation on whatever objective you decide to go to. So having something that could rival that is always good. Emilito's just going to get some CC immunity there. Beautiful chain to catch out Calvin. Has to go into the ultimate to get away that watery grave. Should be enough to control some space, but Zeros pokes out some damage as well. Not bad for a little bit of an engage there from the Scarabs. Calvin's going to have to back up considering how much damage got sent his way.
Pretty big pull for right before the beacon spawns. Granted, 2 of them have already gone over to the Tanuki. So for the Scarabs, this pressure would just be to stop the trifecta. There's a lot of little bonuses in there. I mean, you get all 3, suddenly you're talking 15% damage bonus to structures. Friendshipper stands on the point, holds it for a little bit. Not a lot of commitment, though, from the Scarabs. Charlie, 25 minutes into the game. This could be a massive fight. Depending on how many people you lose, it could change the scope of everything. April gets some damage onto Deathwalker. Deathwalker forced to ult. Spreads the knock-up, not able to get too much. The Tanuki now standing 4 strong on the point with April hanging off to the side. Doesn't seem like there's going to be an answer back. This one should be captured. And the Titans will be choosing to run down mid this time. And have to make sure that you still got everybody to fight for it. Zeros gets low, but April does not have the cooldown, does not have the assistance to get the kill. Zeros walks away, loses his tower, but maintains his life.
I am amazed that Zeros gets to live through that. Aegis down. Thought maybe a crushing wave would have came his way, but the Tanuki will be able to pick up that Pyromancer, and the Runic Bomb goes over towards Streak Up. I've been keeping my eye on French Emperor. This is someone that I really thought would be able to turn the tides of these scraps so far, but the Loki has not gotten involved. Has been looking for April. That is the target, I believe, that you should be going for. Found him in the jungle once, but has not been able to get aggressive. There's a beautiful blink in from Ogabri. And once again, a beautiful blink in from Calvin just to force some relics down. The tanks of the Yomi Tanuki are just not only aggressing perfectly, but pulling relics consistently, making everyone's job easier. Hasn't been able to capitalize on those relics being down, but you know the Solar Scarabs are hesitant to step up when they don't have their Beads Aegis available. Zeros having neither of them. He's going to be staying pretty far back if this Baba Yaga doesn't have ultimate.
You know, about 15 minutes ago when we were talking about how good the pot was for disengage, like, it's still pretty good, but it is not as good as having both your relics around, so maybe slows things down. And you're going to notice, I think, a pretty massive difference in the Titans here. Very easily is the Order Titan to kill. And then Chaos Titan's going to take a little bit longer, maybe push a little further down the lane. Opens up some opportunities in the jungle for the Tanuki to maybe make or set up for a play. But Shelly, unless you're going for a Fire Giant while all 5 of the other team is still standing, it seems like too much of a risk. And so it gives the Tanuki admittedly kind of nothing, right? They've closed up the gap. I will give them the credit where credit is due. The gold lead is nowhere near as massive as it once was. But we're going to need to see a little more than just that. Calvin gets pulled in and getting shredded at that. Uses the Watery Grave for some disengage, but Deathwalker goes forward. The knockup is there, and the shot is good. Support for the Tanuki goes down. Now the chase is on, and Picorino does not seem to have the full disengage. A good little leap. Creates enough space. Same for Ogabri, up into the somersault cloud and flicks to the back of the tier 1 tower in mid. And sometimes that's all you need, but you lose your support, and a Fury is on the way for the Scarabs.
Wow. That was just way overconfidence there from Calvin. Had that Watery Grave, had the CC immunity, decided not to use it, thought he could live in with that pull, and ends up dying for it. The Solar Scarabs grab the Primal Fury. We're 30 minutes in, essentially, Gore. That could have easily turned into a Fire Giant, but just playing a bit safer usually is the EU way here, and that is what they decide. Let's go for the Primal Fury, not in for a Fire Giant, and just get the guaranteed objective that no one's going to be able to contest. I mean, Ogre was there, but not very low-stakes steal opportunity, just sending out the Cudgel. But now the Solar Scarabs have a little bit of leeway here. They should be able to burn that Fire Giant just a little bit quicker than the Tanuki with that extra buff. Will they go in for a Fire Giant dance is the question for now. Again, that was a blank in from Emilito where he just completely whiffed the chains. He wasn't going for Picorino. Ends up using the ultimate just because he was in danger. Didn't want to get sumo slammed into the enemy team. And then Calvin holds on to the ultimate as he was feeling it. Ogre forced into the somersault cloud there. Takes the assassinate, but low cooldowns of plenty. That Bumba's hammer should mean that the assassinate's back up before somersault cloud. It's just not easy to burn through a Sun Wukong, not this early on, when you still have some power spikes to go through if you have carries. Of course, Echrome's working on Fail now, but he's not going to be able to finish that for a bit. Zeros still wants that Soul Reaver. These are the kind of items you definitely need to finish if you want to burn through a tank.
Beads just now burned by April, and unfortunately for the Scarabs, Zeros as well. The Hebo maybe being vulnerable for one of the first times this game. And for the next 160 seconds could open up some opportunities for him. Deathwalker seems to want something. Just can't quite find, again, the lockdown necessary. The team surrounding starts up the pull for the Pyromancer. Ogre should see this, but the CC should be there. Emil goes for the pull onto the Wukong, forces the Somersault Cloud, but Ogre uses that to go in. Oxform away, stunned out, the damage gets him down to half health. Forces them to fall back towards Streak Up. The rest of the Tanuki are there. That is enough of a defense to make sure that the Wukong stays alive, gets out of there. But another neutral objective and even more gold starts to lean over towards the Scarabs.
Yeah, I mean, that was a great ultimate there onto Ogre. You get all the CC down, you get the chains easily. But push under tower is Deathwalker. He might be forced to hold defensively. Holds onto it, though. Does not want to use it. Push back again. Now you have to.
Yeah, use the beads the first time. Knockup's good shield is massive in terms of disengage, but they don't have a lot of their engage. They just have to run now, but Calvin can keep on pushing people back. The shielding, though, just seems to be too strong. Ult from Zeros gets some damage out there, and they're turning it around, but the mid laner does still fall. Ogre is the trade out, but you lose Immel as well. Streak Up low. Calvin low. Someone's got to get in there, and here comes French Emperor with the broom to sweep them up. It's a double kill for the jungler. Helps equalize this fight. It's 3 for 2, and the Scarabs now turn their eyes to the fire.
Deathwalker's able to tank this one up, but here comes April. Blink is available. Does the Hebo hide in the backline, or can he even get here in time is the question. This Fire Giant is going down quickly. He's going to have to get in here and blink immediately. The Water Hands is his best steal attempt, but Deathwalker and French Emperor already W-keying towards the Hebo.
He's hanging around. Shelly wants to get aggressive. And he's going to blink around. Fire Giant seems to be the target here for April. Knocked up, controlled, CC'd. The damage, too strong. The Hebo gone for 60. And now with Calvin out of there, it's a full-on deicide. And the Fire Giant
and they
here
can wait.
Enhanced on top of that. And like you said, they can wait for Zeros just to let him pick it up. It is a great few minutes here for the Scarabs.
I can't believe it. I mean, that really was a bit of a coin toss there, but unfortunately, when you're going in for a Fire Giant steal in a Priel situation, sometimes you just gotta blink in. You can't let yourself be put into combat. You can't get zoned out, so he blinks in it too early. Doesn't have Crushing Wave. He's not able to go in for the steal. And then what? You can't go in for a kill. You've essentially just put yourself in the lion's den, and they were hungry. So easy two-piece there, and which would have been a enhanced Fire Gen on 3, stalls out so long that they're able to just wait and say, all right, we'll wait for everyone else to spawn back in, and then the whole team gets enhanced Fire Giant. I mean, April made the only play he really could. If he had beads or ult, maybe it goes a little bit differently, but that's rough pickings.
Not much you can do in that scenario other than hope. And unfortunately, I hope didn't work out, at least this time around. Of course, a brief little pause, but jolly good news. It's going to come to an end right here. Picorino back in the game. And just in time, they need to mount a defense and figure things out. 15 seconds before Apriel is back. Calvin, about 10. So you got 3 defending the right side. Phoenix. Deathwalker walks forward. Good damage right now from E-Chrome. It's insane, but the damage from Fringe Emperor maybe is a little bit better. Picorino forced to fall back. Streak Up's helping him out. The Phoenix is the target, though. E-Chrome gets that, trades out for the jungler, and picks up the solo laner to boot. A kill for a kill, but the Phoenix makes that one a Scarabs win. Now they can back up, reset for those of you who didn't, and the Scarabs are going to start marching down, maybe mid, maybe left, looking for more objectives.
Yeah, but now French Emperor is able to finish that. Heartseeker gets a power pot as well. This Bumba's Hammer Loki is doing some big things in the backline. You just vanish in, hit an auto attack, you essentially get all your cooldowns back off. It can be very scary considering how much damage he's able to do. Even with that Soul Eater, I was wondering when it was going to come into play, and it seems like these returned engagements have been the call. But right side bird drops, which means the Solar Scarab should send their attention over to this Oni Fury and the left side Phoenix. I guess tier 2 first, but because of the Enhanced Fire Giant, I'd be remiss if they didn't even at least attempt to try and go in for one more Phoenix once they get their Loki back in 5 seconds. And Yomi Tanuki are grouped up as 4, because Ogabree's still dead for a couple seconds. Just trying to hold on to the last bit of their tier 2 towers, trying to stall out the rest of this Enhanced Fire Giant. It's not going to be easy, if I'm honest. I'm not going to say that Picorino hasn't been doing great damage. I was curious how this build was going to come out. He finally gets that tablet stacked up, gets the Gem of Focus. Should be able to start swinging now. Those tornadoes actually have been doing some decent damage. I'm going to keep my eye on the damage dealers because the Solar Scarab step forward, and Amelito already blinks in.
Yeah, looks for a pull, not able to grab Streak Up, but forces the ult. Calvin goes for the Watery Grave, doesn't get the pull, and that creates a lot of opportunity. Meanwhile, Zeros was doing a lot of work here. Might not have been in the fight, but gets the minions, and that's what the team needed. Half health already as the Phoenix, and the step forward is there. Firebolts thrown down by the Baba Yaga. Immel's taking a lot of damage, has to play carefully, but the team is there for backup. Somersault Cloud gets Ogabree to safety for now. And the Phoenix remains at half health. E-Chrome steps forward. A couple autos, one more, he gets it! And that's the Enhanced Fire Giant. Now Enhanced Fire minions are about to march in on right. And the Scarabs, with a little bit of time left, have one target in mind, one target left, and that's the mid-Phoenix.
Yep, those Oni Fire minions are going to have to be dealt with. Apriel and Picorino seem to be going for it, but Amelito does not have too much damage here to try and step forward. And it's actually Calvin blinking, and he catches out Deathwalker.
E-Chrome has to be careful. Already used the Bifrost out
Double
of there.
pull.
Deathwalker pushed in twice and killed off once. Enough to create the space that Tanuki need to mount a defense and keep at least one bird alive. But one bird, Shelly, it's a lot to rely on. 35+ minutes into the game. That's all they've got for their defense. Fire Giant's going to wear off pretty soon here for the Scarabs. They fall back, get the Pyromancer. And I estimate a reset as they set up for what should be a Fire Giant, but Ogabree is looking to play upset here and stop some backs, or at least stall them. Let his team walk up, get some wards out there, set the field for what I anticipate to be a pretty big fight.
Yeah, I don't hate that play. Just trying to stall out as much as possible because you know that right side Phoenix will be up shortly. And if you can get that right side Phoenix up, you only have to worry about one wave of fire minions, which Ogabree should be able to deal with considering he's got that teleport locked and loaded. So you send your Wukong over to left, clear out a wave or two, maybe even the Tiamat minions or Picorino, and then you got a full 5v5 towards Enhanced Fire Giant once that teleport gets used. So a smart call there. Yomi Tanuki are using their limited resources about to the best of their ability, trying to make sure this Enhanced Fire Giant doesn't go down another time, because I'm thinking one more EFG and the Solar Scarabs could be knocking on GG for game number 1, considering how much damage they've been able to get for themselves. But the engage from the Solar Scarabs has been so questionable. It is not rocket science that Calvin is going to try and push your tanks into the Phoenix. The issue, however, is the second pull. Usually, you pop those shell spikes, you get a reset on the Sumo Slam, you do it again, and that's a bit of an issue. The first time, Amelito was able to juke it, but Deathwalker gets hit by both. Did not have his ultimate. Get that Watery Grave down early. Trading ult for ult. Now Calvin gonna lose that CC immunity.
Gives a little bit of an option. Good pull from Deathwalker onto Picorino. Gets him down to half health with the help of Zeros. Now Calvin marching forward, maybe taking too much damage. Doesn't have the team to help him. And there's going to be the dash. The sumo slam gets him out of there. Deathwalker again leading the way. Picorino, Calvin, you would assume need to reset here. Give a numbers advantage over to the Scarabs. Calvin does back. Picorino has not. Half health Tiamat has me wondering what this team's going to be able to do. Starts the back now. Calvin's going to be joining the fray. But the Fire Giant started by the Scarabs, looking to control the pit. Zeros is leading the way in terms of defense and zone. French Emperor and Immel part of the conversation as well. Fire Giant leashed. The Scarabs are going to drop this one as they back away. Not able to get the bait they wanted. And a kill onto the Tanuki that would have made a massive opening for him.
Would have. Picorino even went back to base, but again, just did not pull the trigger. You could see French Emperor was going for some stealth play, wanted to try and catch out a Priel, but could not close gap, and the Loki could not get close up. French Emperor. Actually a good blink in there from Calvin just to stop the back from Ikram. I don't think this bodes well, though. Calvin should be getting pulled back in. If Emilito can get here with the ultimate, it looks like he's already getting low.
Yeah, some good CC. There's going to be the pull as well, and it grabs Calvin, and Ikram, he just surges forward. He doesn't care about the damage that was there. Gets a kill, and Deathwalker, Zeros separate the rest of the team. They're chasing down for some kills. They need something. Picorino first on the chopping block. With the rest, as far back as they are, it could only be Ogabri that falls now, but French Emperor joins in. CC not going to be there, but the tick damage, oh my god, from the Loki is more than enough to send 3 to the grave on the Tanuki, and that the Scarabs have an open and free Fire Giant.
Yeah, all that starts with Calvin blanking in. It was a good play to stop Ikram, but using Watery Grave, that was a death sentence. The way that Emilito has been playing has been, hey, I'm going to blink in and go on Kuzumbo. If he gets his ult down for you, that's just a free kill. He's able to pull him back in, does as much damage as possible with the Thorns. And then, of course, French Emperor getting to the back line, poking out a Priel, making him go back to base. The left side bird follows regardless. And then French Emperor finishing that kill with Vanish, and the true damage from the Scorching Blink means that this Titan is looking on thin waters. Respawn's coming here soon. Calvin's not up for 5 more seconds.
You gotta march in. You gotta get something done. Ikram's damage has been insane. So is French Emperor. He does go down. The Phoenix makes sure to get revenge in favor of the Hebo. But 65 seconds without the jungler on the side of the Tanuki could be the last straw to break the camel's back. They have to find out, though, can you jump into the base with 4 on the defense? Ogabri's back, making it an even
fight. He teleported in!
Goes in, and Ikram sends Calvin through the realms. Now has to worry about staying alive. Ogabri goes in looking for the carry. Damage is there, but you lost Streak Up. You've traded now 1 for 1. Pull is good from Immel, but you're getting low yourself. Pushed back towards the Phoenix line, back where the damage is waiting. Picorino, the chase is on, but Deathwalker pushed away. Minions are putting in the work, trying to be distracting, and Deathwalker has just enough damage to get some of this work done. Zeros, full health, full mana, and a lot of work to be done. Trelli, this one's starting to seem like a little bit of a pipe dream to get into that Titan room and kill it. 40.5 minutes in, successful defense, maybe even a good kill here on the Immel. Push on the Deathwalker, keeps him engaged. With enough CC and slows, they might be able to stagger out one of the frontliners. At the minimum, the Tanuki make a stand and somehow, some way, stay in this game.
It's not going to be easy. 3 Phoenixes down with your Titan that low. You always have to keep your eye on where French Emperor is. This Titan is not going to be able to regen HP until those birds come back. The Solar Scarabs have been pushed away, though. The Titan still stands, and the Yomi Tanuki have a few different options. They can sit in their base, ward up, and wait for the impending doom that the Solar Scarabs bring upon them, or they can group up in the jungle and try and bring a fight to the other side. The issue with that, of course, is if you lose track of Loki for 1 second, your Titan dies. And I think the Yomi Tanuki know that. They're going to need to get as much ward vision as they can and try and set up and keep these Phoenixes alive. It is a very difficult situation. Giving this Runic Bomb over to someone who can easily get into the Phoenix should be the call here. But it looks like Deathwalker's just going to end up picking it up. That left side bird would be the first target. And, of course, the Solar Scarabs are grouped up in mid. I don't think they even want to go in for the next EFG. They still have another minute. They might as well just group up for 1 more siege onto the Titan. If Zeros gets into his ult and someone tanks, that Titan should be dead.
Pretty easy. If they can just open up the path, they might be able to find it right here. Calvin immediately taking
Apriel's
half
behind.
Health. Like you said, Apriel, someone you have to
There
worry
it
about.
is.
Gets the damage. Wow, Echrome just erased, deleted, and removed from the map. The Hebo still in a good position as well to maybe loop around. Goes the long way to join the team to make sure things stay safe. Poke from Zeros so far has been good. Emilito not going to get either pull that he looks for. Forces Ogre's ult and forces beads from Apriel. Left side Phoenix up.
They got to go now or never. These
Somehow
Phoenixes are
surviving.
spawning.
Like you said, you got to press the gas pedal, and you got to get aggressive here. Deathwalker has a runic bomb in pocket. Needs to get aggressive. Knock up good from Apriel onto Immel, but it's Immel, of all people, not the one that you're fishing for. Meanwhile, you said it, got to keep your eyes on the Loki. Right-hand side with fire minions. Ogre stops this one, at least for a little bit, but you got to be careful about the Titan room. And Viz for French Emperor. A little bit of decoy status, but not enough to get into the room.
They're not
Right
going?
side, mid side, all Phoenix is about to be up. And the Tanuki, man, against all odds, might have just made a necessary defense if they want to survive this game.
I mean, Apriel with the wraparound. That's all he needed. He said, hey, I'm taking someone out with me. Maybe I die. Doesn't even end up dying. Goes behind, knock up on Echrome, who had both relics and knock up immunity with the Gallarhorn. Crushing wave into the water hands. That's a dead Heimdall. And of course, once you lose one, the Solar Scarabs didn't want to go in. I would not be surprised if once Crushing Wave was down, it's as easy as, hey, Deathwalker's going to ult in, get a massive Prid windshield. Zeros ults, French Emperor ults, Titan's dead. But when you're in a 4v5, you start blurring the lines of what's possible. And they were a little bit too fearful of how much damage would come their way. Of course, how much CC is on the side of the Tanuki. And they decide against it. They go for the smarter call in this instance, and that's to go for another EFG. But they've lost just about every advantage. The fire minions are gone, all the Phoenixes are up, and that Titan's already regenning HP.
Trelly tanky at this rate. I mean, it didn't, not just a little bit. It's feeling pretty good as far as the Titan goes. Fire Giant, maybe you're having a different conversation now, getting low. You have to be careful here. Calvin walks in. Calvin looks for a little bit. Tanuki, take the Fire Giant away! And now they just have to survive. They have to get something done to turn things around. And Milito gets a pull onto Calvin with the ultimate. But the rest of the Tanuki seem happy with this trade, immediately start to fall back and recognize their scenario. A massive win for them. A 44-minute Fire Giant pickup and steal away from the Scarabs. And Trelly from 3 Phoenixes down. Now the ball's in their court. 3 towers left standing for the Scarabs, all 3 tier 2s. So they've got some work to do if you're the Tanuki. But you've now got the effort to make it happen.
And you know, I've been highlighting Calvin's annoyance all game, and how more annoying can it get than 88 damage from Watery Grave, stealing away your enhanced Fire Giant 45 minutes into game number 1 when you just had the Titan on death's door with 3 Phoenixes down and you don't end up ending. There's nothing more annoying than that. Calvin got to be feeling pretty good about himself. Oh yeah, there's still 3 tier 2 towers that the Yomi Tanuki have to try and get through. They have not had their ability to try and siege the Titan of the Solar Scarabs, but it begins now. I've got my eyes on, of course, Calvin for the engage, but also Apriel. This Hebo has a delete key when that Crushing Wave is available, and there's a lot of members on the Solar Scarabs that can get deleted by that 4 button. Left side of the map is the call. Try and go for these towers. All the while, I was going to say Echrome split pushing, but probably wants to stay back and try and defend this bird. It's not easy once you start losing those Phoenixes to mount a defense.
Late game, and I mean it, 46 minutes in, the EFG, the Tanuki, for the first time in a long time, finally getting to be the aggressors. Left side Phoenix, where they are choosing to hang out. Now the question, how do you crack open this eggshell? Emil goes for a pull, forces Ogre into the somersault cloud, a trade that has been happening more and more often. The Tanuki seem to recognize they shouldn't squander the time they have. Move over towards mid, knock down the tier 2. A little bit of extra gold now in their pockets, but at this rate, Trelly, you're talking full builds, maybe not a big deal. Streak up though, his health bar, huge deal. Has to use the ult, tries to get out, but the chains, the flames, they're too good, and Immel gets a kill, a massive one at that to start this fight. Now the chase is on Calvin. No escape right now, nowhere to go except down, and that's exactly where the Scarabs send him into the ground. 3v5, 3 with the EFG, the weakened Phoenixes standing for the Tanuki. Titan, it's reginned, but you've got all the damage in the world, all 5 team members here for the Scarabs to march down mid. Mid Phoenix, not as quite a walk in the park as I thought it was going to be. Takes a little more time for the Scarabs, but goes down nonetheless. Left side Phoenix is the call. Chrome Zeros walk over. Still 30 seconds before Streak Up comes back. And you don't have Okabri anymore. Picarino goes in. You need a kill. You need something, but you just cannot find it. The kill onto E-Chrome feels great, but you lose yourself. You lose French Emperor as well. Now the Scarabs having to approach this in a very different manner. Zeros' damage, is it enough? They've got some minions. Does not seem that the Scarabs think they're strong enough in this form. On Trelly, they get the mid Phoenix. They lose 2, almost 3, and have to fall back.
I mean, April did as much as he really could there. Okabri, if he gets up into the somersault cloud, maybe that fight goes a bit differently, but just so much damage, so much tick damage heading his way before he could even get up into the cloud and ends up dying before it could happen. Picarino also jumps in, tries to get as much damage as possible, stall out that left side Phoenix, and it ends up working out just fine. Emilito doing a surprising amount of damage to these carries this late into the game. By the way, these chains were doing so much to April, just forcing out this Evo, had to reset before the fight even began. But now the Solar Scarabs are back in an advantageous position. They've got 1 Phoenix down, and they're looking towards the Pyromancer. I thought maybe if French Emperor had one of those runic bombs in hand, that he'd be able to go backdoor a Phoenix or something like that, but remember, it was Deathwalker who picked up the first one. This next one, I'm thinking you'd like to get over to someone who could easily get under the Phoenix, create some space, or just delete it at any given moment. Either way, though, the Yomi Tanuki, with help from the Tiamat minion, should be able to 5v5 at the Enhanced Fire Giant once again. So it seems like, even with that mid Phoenix being down, it's not going to create too much of an obstacle here. It's all going to be when the Solar Scarabs decide to go in. And by the way, just 50-50 and cannot be the play. They were not able to find the chase down after. If you don't have some absurd amount of burst damage available, I can't see a reason to pull a ZFG just for fun at 50 minutes. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, maybe too risky this late in the game, especially now that you have 2 Phoenixes exposed. Before, maybe you could make an argument, oh, if we only lose 1, we at least have the tower line, we can defend. A little different now. French Emperor has to use the ult for a disengage here. Low health. Means that it's a force back. Okabri forced in the somersault cloud by Emilito. His tail as old as time at this point. But it's the engage, actually, from Deathwalker that keeps this fight going. Ult used by the Mulan to start things up. Doesn't seem to be doing too much. E-Chrome sends Calvin through the realms. I don't think the Kuzenbo has too much to worry about here, but the group up still hanging for the Scarabs. Fire minions force Streak Up to fall back. No beads, no ult on the carry. Means that Emil, once his ult comes up, could be a big deal. But it's the Fire Giant. Shelly, you said you didn't want to see him 50-50. We'll see if they can weigh this coin a little more in their favor. They keep pushing for it. Deathwalker playing distraction.
He should be dead.
Fire Giant's low. He's getting low. April comes in. A little bit of extra damage. And like you said, he is gone. Fire Giant, at this point, was never leashed. It's still being held by Emil. Emil has no health bar. Okabri is able to come in and get some extra damage out there. Survives it. They lose the Fire Giant to the Scarabs, but it is a win right now for the Tanuki as Picarino picks up 2, looks to pick up 3, jump forward onto Zeros, and the chase is on alongside
They can win this.
Calvin.
French Emperor's behind.
Real. They're going to go for a little bit. French Emperor finds the Hebo. Calvin's low. And the Loki's looking for a little more. Stunned out by Okabri, but the CC seems to be there, and that's enough. The kill, not even enough to find Calvin, but that is enough. A full-on deicide for the Tanuki, who needs the FG. You've got the fight, and you've got game 1.
I really thought French Emperor could have made a bigger wave there, but he used all of his damage onto the Kuzenbo. That is not the target with this build that you want to be looking towards, and of course, the Yomi Tanuki. After stealing that last Enhanced Fire Giant, and then in this case, not even needing it. Deathwalker just gets caught out. He goes a little bit too far in April. I mentioned it so many times. This Hebo has a delete key when he needs it. Didn't even use Crushing Wave. Just used the upgraded beads for the extra cooldowns. Triple Water Hands. That was enough to put down Deathwalker. And the 5v4, they just W-keyed.
And there was a period of time 30 minutes ago where we were like, well, hey, you don't have the pin in the build. The tanks aren't the ones who are worried about. you finished. You got there, right?
When you get a 3K pot, no one's a tank anymore.
Yeah, at that point, and man, 15 minutes in, I think that goes to show if you can withhold. I mean, you were 3 Phoenixes down here if you're the Tanuki. Your Titan was that close to dead.
Yep.
The fact that they defended not once, not twice, but like 5 times, it feels like, was just insane for them. Drag this game out the full distance that it could, much like we saw in set 1. But similar to set 1, it gets them a win here, but that's just game number 1. We'll have to find out if they can continue this with this set move forward in the Gauntlet. And we'll see all of that, of course, right after this.
Master of life and death takes front stage. Let's liven things up, shall we? Come, the party's this way.
Now, the music's not the only, I guess, thing that's bumping in there. It's also the fact that the Baron's Brew, man, it just tastes so good. To the point where, and I was pretty candid about this the last time that we were talking about it, of course, if you're looking for something that's delicious, you'd go to Advanced GG. And how do you know it's delicious? Literally all of the vials that we had on the desk and on set were empty because people kept coming in and taking the powder from them, because the ones that we had in the back were empty from getting drank all the time. So if you need a better testament than that, I don't know what there is. I think as of right now, I know of one that still has some powder, and I'm pretty sure Jordan stole it and is guarding it with a knife on his desk. So good luck to anyone trying to get it in the studio. But if you want either Baron's Brew or the Baron's Bundle with a beautiful, beautiful shaker, and of course I have to give these shakers even more of a shout out because they're heavy duty, they feel great, your drinks are going to stay whatever temperature they happen to be, whether it's cold or hot. And it's so, Trelly, this one's the weirdest one for me, man, but it's the lid on these. You probably aren't thinking of mouthfeel a whole lot when you're buying a water bottle. You go out and buy something for like $10. It's cheap. It's going to break in 6 months anyway. This thing is going to be better for you. The mouthfeel on the lid is amazing. And so you make sure you pick those up. Go to advanced.gg/smite. Of course, use code SMITE on checkout, things like that. But get yourself some Baron's Brew. Get yourself the cup and do yourself the favor. Have something delicious in your life. But it's Gore, it's Trelly, and of course it is now going in towards game number 2, but first the recap of game 1, which is 50 full minutes of back and forth. But I would argue that 30, maybe 40 minutes of it felt like it was just Scarabs. It was Scarabs, Scarabs, and then the Tanuki make a defense. And then the Tanuki make another defense. And then suddenly they've got their Phoenixes back, Trelly, and they're back into it.
Yeah, having 3 Phoenixes down and your Titan below 4k HP is almost unsurmountable. It is almost impossible to come back from unless you make a massive play, which I think April did just that. Realized they were coming in, probably going in for the end. Finds a massive crushing wave from behind to delete E-Chrome. Then it's a 4v5 in the Scarab side. We can probably still end, but should we? Like, should we attempt to go in for the end? They decide against it. All 3 birds spawn in. Calvin goes in for a miracle steal on the next enhanced fire giant. And after that, the momentum was just gone, Gore. Once you lose the opportunity to go in for the end and the enhanced fire giant, it just didn't matter what came next. And I'll tell you what came next. The Scarabs grabbed the enhanced fire giant and lost the fight after the fact. It didn't matter. That much of a buff. When you're down 4v5, when you've lost all opportunity to try and come back in from the game, it unfortunately just does not matter at that point.
I mean, delete button, right? You know, we talked about it going into that. There's some gods that just the later the game goes, they're too much, man. And that was Hebo here. That was Kali in the last set. I mean, April, there were definitely moments where maybe you can point at it and, you know, you go into VOD review, maybe your coach is going to harp on you for some things, but at the end of the day, a dub's a dub, and you did exactly what you needed. I would say 2 games in a row if we want to count last set, but definitely for this last game. You got to the late game, you focused on your damage, you did 34,000, not even the most in the game, but you go 8-3-4. You look fantastic. 51,000 coming from Picorino, though, cannot be overlooked. I mean, this was not even a silent killer because you're going 7-4. You're doing a lot of the killing, as it turns out. But Picorino, I think, in April, were able to get a lot of damage out there and really upset the balance, I think, that the Scarabs were bringing to the fights.
Yeah, for sure. The double mage combo here from the Tanuki was disastrous, and I'm going to go ahead and give a lot of credit over to Calvin as well. This Kuzumbo was annoying. I mean, there's no other way to put it. He was constantly pushing people back in, more often than not, popping the thorns in high-pressure situations, making it say, hey, if you're going to hit me, you're going to take reflection damage from the thorns and from the shell spikes, and I'm going to displace you. Whether that's into my team, away from my team, up and down, whatever, you're going to have a hard time doing damage in these team fights, and that Kuzumbo, in my mind, would be one of the first things I want to take away. That and probably the Hebo. Those two were just so annoying to try and deal with, especially if you're going to get the 40-plus minutes.
Yeah, put some limiters on them,
yep.
Blinders on them at the minimum to make sure they can't see everything. Got to figure something out here, and where else to start than picks and bans for game number 2. A lot of play on field was good from both teams. Scarabs' farm game was insane, but I believe, if I remember correctly, coming into this one with a sub. So that is going to change the dynamic, I think, a little bit, right? So Neevy's going to be jumping into this one. And that, I mean, Trelly, when you see a team that has played, I would argue, and this goes back to that 82% of SMITE that we were maybe talking about. They played 82% of a winning game, maybe even more, 95% of a winning game, and fell a little short. But when you change in a sub, especially going into a game 2, that can change the dynamic of everything, of the entire team comp.
It certainly can, and I think that's something to be considered, because it wasn't that I had a problem with the Loki. I think was doing fine damage. It was more so just I thought French Emperor could get more aggressive, especially when the Titan was so low. I thought maybe could go in. So at that point, I would like a little bit of a change-up jungle-wise, and the Tanuki do make a change-up. They remove that Kuzbo from play. They make sure that's not coming through, and of course the Scarabs also say no more Hebo. Those are two things that we're not going to be able to see again, I think, for good reason. Number one, don't want to give the Scarabs the opportunity to first pick that Kuzumbo, and number two, the Scarabs clearly don't want to deal with the Hebo again. So those are two switch-ups that I expected, and I'm pretty happy to see.
The Thor was really good, admittedly for Ogabri earlier, but a good pick nonetheless. Bans, should probably recap on those. Hebo, as you were talking about, Robin. Freya, other side, you got the Marty. Specifically, I also see the Kuzumbo, but the Kali as well. Limit some of those late game carries and see what you can do. We had talked about the Thor, now a Hachi. I almost called him Heimdall. Hachi locked in with the Scarabs. Yu Huang being hovered. Tanuki had locked in Baba Yaga as well as their Ishtar. Now, a lot of these gods, Trelly, they've been doing real good as of late. But do you feel, at least top 3-wise, and now top 3 locked in for the other side, one has an advantage for the first half of the picks and bans?
I mean, I'm leaning over towards the Tanuki just because I think the Baba is very easy, very hard to mess up. You're not wasting many home sweet homes. If you go up into the ultimate, those fire bolts will at least chase a bit even if you miss, whereas Yu Huang, my issue has always been he's incredibly safe. He's got great early damage. He's got good CC. The Dueling Dragons, if you're not able to hit key targets, if you don't hit enough damage, you lose a lot of this character's kit. So Zero's going to have to be on point with that ultimate just to make sure that he's getting the value out of that Yu Huang. But of course, the Thor, so highly prioritized for good reason, can just delete targets in the backline. And of course, Hachi, I highlighted it last game. He's just one of the safest hunters you can really grab and has tremendous late game potential.
Well, you get tier as that bottom 3, which we've seen. I was going to say Deathwalker play, and now that he's playing against it, maybe that gives him a small advantage. Maybe it doesn't. It'll be the Bologna locked in there for him. Bans, Odin, Ares, Ymir, Ao Kuang, Tanuki for the first 2, Scarabs for the last 2. Susano going to the jungle here for the Tanuki. And it's Bologna Fafnir locked in at the very end. And I couldn't tell, was that a no, I don't agree with a Fafnir, or how do you feel about him at the end?
It's just the full composition here from the Scarabs to me is a bit questionable. They're leaning towards objective damage, right? If you're going Fafnir, you want to be able to buff up your carries and just shred through objectives. But you're going to be buffing Bologna and Hachi, really. This is more so a pick that I would think more of double ADC. You don't have that extra damage here. Bologna, if you build a couple auto attack items, I suppose, can be classified sort of like an ADC, but you're not getting that amount of shred towards the objectives, and that's really what Fafnir provides. Or shred towards single characters, usually tanks, right? You can get a Sunder, Hammer, Dragon Stun, get another set of stuns onto those carries, use the Sunder. You know, you're shredding down one specific target, whether that be objectives or tanks, is up to you. It just doesn't seem like the Solar Scarabs are playing into that composition fully, right? They don't have the double ADC, they don't have incredible burst damage for the objectives after. It's just sort of, they're just sprinkling it in their composition towards the end, whereas the Tanuki, they've got great AoE damage, they've got plenty of beads burn with the Tyr and the Sobek, of course, and then I always like a Baba Yaga and a Susanoo at the end of any composition.
And the one thing I think that I was going to comment on, maybe we'll talk a little bit about as we jump into game number 2 here. Sobek at the very end. Now, I have had 2 recent, I guess, interactions with Sobek. One was very recently when we were doing the Smite the Devs hour a couple days ago. Maybe not the best example of what a Sobek can do during that segment. But then the last one, at least competitively, you go back to Warriors taking on the Ferryman at the very end of Masters, and you get Awesome Jake. Also, maybe not the most prolific example of what you would want for your Sobek. Poll this time around, it was 82 for the Scarabs last time. Now 69% in favor of the Scarabs. Obligatory nice getting dropped here. And the question is whether or not, Trelly, you think that this comp, and specifically now that you've got your jungler swapped out, is going to be enough to maybe lean them back in favor of control. Was their control so dominant last time that it kind of overcomes any changes?
Not entirely. I mean, any game that's going to go as late as it did means that there were some mistakes made on both sides. But, you know, the Solar Scarabs, I think, are in a worse spot just because they had the game all but gift-wrapped it, and then they dropped it, right? By all means, that was a thrown game by the Scarabs, so now I think they have to try and make up for it, whether that be through early pressure or just making sure that the Tanuki know, hey, that wasn't your win, that was our loss, and we're trying to come back. But as far as I'm concerned, the Tanuki came out swinging this game. They got overwhelming pressure over in duo lane. I think they won the picks and bans so far. All but this 2v2 in mid seems to be going their way.
Damage
Maybe even the
onto
2v2 in mid.
Preel finds what you need. Now Nevi needs to find something here. Double tap is good onto Picarino, but did your wall hurt you more than help you? You got a little bit of extra damage from the Baba Yaga. The silence is good. Preel with the pull, the damage, and a double kill early on. I guess it's only the one. The mid laner scrapes it away, but 2 for the Tanuki. In the blink of an eye, and Trelli said they came out to play. They came out swinging, and I can't think of a better example.
Yep. I mean, unfortunately for Thor, Nevi used the double tap, didn't find a kill. The second that kill drops, your fight is over. I mean, Susano has so much extra ability with the auto attack resets and that jet stream to find kills. Thor is a double tap and a cloud of dust at level 2, and he was not able to find much. So in this case, you get Picarino off to a fantastic start. April should be able to start that Transcendence well before Nevi grabbing that first blood. The Tanuki are off to a great start, and what I don't want is for it to just plateau. I don't want that to be the only kills that the Yomi Tanuki find. They should be able to use this aggression. April should hit level 5 relatively early and use that elsewhere. Whether that's in solo lane, that's where we saw some bloodshed last time, or towards duo lane. I want to see the Susano rotating and looking for action.
Got to get a little more, well, I can't say a little more active. You're pretty active already. But continue your activity across the map. But so far, I mean, fall back, look, speed buff to speed buff. You got to go for that one. Very good pickup early on, and is showcased by Doug immediately. It's 1,000 gold that's shifted into their favor, that first blood bounty being pretty massive for him. Calvin playing the role of annoying this game, and so far doing pretty well. Plucks the buff away, forcing Immel and E-Chrome to play a little defensively, unable to steal that one away, but is just setting up for a little bit more. Doesn't have
I'd be so
backup
mad.
either. Is literally just trying to make E-Chrome's life a little harder, and has done exactly that. Allowed Streak Up to get some farm, hit level 5. And that's a pretty big one. Speaking of level 5, April is there as well. Right now, Trelli, it's looking like it's just going to be the shield buff. Nothing too big, no big playmaking happening on left, but 2 pretty good milestones early on in this game matched and met by the Tanuki.
See what April's able to find here, though. E-Chrome level 4 gets pulled back in. The jet stream should be enough with the ultimate to finish it off, and he gets it cleanly. Emilita, oh, I was going to say, can't even find the hammer. No, because Calvin blinks in to block it, just in case. It didn't even come through, but Calvin said, hey, you're not killing my jungle even if you get the opportunity to.
Gets the pluck knock up as well. Streak Up needs a little more damage. They're not going to have it. The leap, just a little too strong from Immel, but a beautiful play from the Tanuki. And really from April, and now, oh no, with the pluck there.
The ult?
Maybe you drop it. No, a little
Not
extra
enough
damage.
mana.
And that's kind of been the dangerous game here for Streak Up. Not a lot of mana to work with. Calvin pays for it with his life. Nevi with a good dunk. Maybe a combo coming up here. No wall, no hammer, no nothing. And has to back away. Pulls 1 kill back in favor of the Scarabs.
I blame Ogabri for that one. That's a totem diff as far as I'm concerned. If Streak Up has a little bit more MP5, I'm pretty sure you're killing Emilito off that first pluck. You get the extra mana for your ultimate and you're chilling. But unfortunately, Deathwalker has had totem control, which means no extra MP5 going your way. At least that specific totem went the way of the Solar Scarab. So a great ultimate there from Nevi to return. Again, I was talking about how because April got that early start, should get active. That does not mean that because Nevi died early, he should not be active. And I think that's exactly the opportunity he took. Said, hey, I got an Anvil of Dawn. At the very least, I can take down the level 4 Sobek. And he does just that. Luckily, of course, Streak Up's able to make it out and not even had to beads. So the Ishtar is going to be sitting just fine over in the duo lane. At the very least, though, there's a 2-0 Susano running around with the Transcendence online. And I'm hoping that is not the only early aggression we see from the Susano.
Yeah, we need to see a little more. I mean, 2-0, you lose the 1 kill, but it goes on to your support. So it doesn't feel like it should be a slowdown. It just depends, I guess, on the rest of the team. Good farm practice, and very important to me, Trelli, is just the big difference between Game 1 and Game 2, which is for the Tanuki staying not only ahead in terms of farm, granted not by a lot, but still ahead. The Scarabs, last time around, I mean, they just had everything that you could possibly imagine needing. Transformation here, though, from Emilito. Nevi in the neighborhood has ultimate here in a second. might be going for a dunk. Have to watch in the jungle for anything right there. Immel in trouble. Nevi up into the air. Immel's gone. There are 4 over here for the Tanuki. Dunk down, finds 1 onto Streak Up. No mana for the carry. But Nevi knows better than to try and stay in this fight. Backs away. And is yet another kill for the Tanuki.
Real's in the jungle, though. Was thinking about looking for a 1v1 versus this sword. Decides against it. I've been liking these dunks from Nevi, though. Was able to pull the beads off of Streak Up, even though there was no fight to be had. Drop the Anvil of Dawn aggressively, and Streak Up uses it just in case. So there is a bit of a target on the back of the Ishtar for the time being. But duo lane has certainly been where most of the aggression's been happening so far this game. After the double kill in mid, it's been all on the left side of the map. And mostly whenever these junglers decide to show up, because they both have 100% kill participation, whether that be 1 kill for Nevi or 3 and an assist for April. They have been looking to try and get as much done on the left side of the map as possible. And I was talking about how you essentially only have 1 target who's really abusing the Fafnir buff unless Deathwalker decides to build into some damage. Phalanx into some more attack speed. Seems like damage is the call.
Get something out there while you can. Unfortunately, it's not going to be another kill. Fortunately here for the Scarabs, they managed to stay alive. So, pressure still on and applied by the Tanuki. A little bit late start. I mean, 40 to 14 are the stacks on the Transcendence. Changes things up a little bit. Streak Up playing distraction. Good walls from Nevi. April in a little bit of trouble. Goes for the ult. Gets the knock up. Immel has the transformation. Not a lot of targets to go for. And I thought Echrome was going to be in a little more danger, but the beads have been forced. It's pretty massive over on left. So small victories. Maybe in favor of the Tanuki with the ults that have been used. Immel, though. Man, I said Calvin was playing annoying earlier. I think this might be the most annoying you could be as a support. You transform, you chase him down. Now you're going for the speed buff invade, but that might be overstaying your welcome. Unable to secure it. Low health bar. A little help from April. You might be able to find a kill here. Nevi's in the jungle. Might be coming to help the support out. Goes up in the air. Is looking for a dunk. Finds no one. No, just a little wide. Still gets the damage, though, and that's enough to kill off April. Not able to lock down Picarino, but steal the red buff and have to feel good about that engage.
I mean, that is all just from Emilito's annoyance. All the while, Calvin's been stuck over in duo lane, essentially just sapping farm away from Streak Up. Of course, Echrome's beads were down, so maybe looking for the tier 1 tower. That's the victory that the Yomi Tanuki are after. But Emilito has been so annoying for just about everyone on the right side of the map. Gave up the duo lane immediately and said, hey, I'm just going to chase people around, use the Dragon's Den to make sure that April was low enough that Nevi can come through with the double ultimate, find a massive ult, and of course get the shutdown gold from killing the 3-0 Susano. And Emilito doesn't seem like he's going to stop there. Just step forward just to get even more attempted farm towards the purple buff.
There's the teleport in from April. Pull on the Immel. Ult. Going for the knockup. Pluck onto Echrome's good.
Oh.
But it's not going to create the setup the team maybe had hoped for. Tanuki unable to find the kill. Just get a lot of poke in this instance. No Gold Fury pull either. So 10 minutes in, 4-2. The Tanuki, despite leading in kills and being the aggressor, is actually down about 500 gold right now. Beacon starts charging. Going to be up in about 2 minutes. Maybe a good spot to get a taste for what these teams' team fight will look like.
That was terribly unlucky. I mean, Echrome didn't have the beads. Ogre teleports in because he knows the chain stun is coming, but April's Typhoon knockup canceled out the pluck from Calvin, or vice versa. However you want to see the CC PEMDAS there. You can't pluck someone who's getting knocked up and vice versa, and because of that, Echrome doesn't fly back. He's able to use the cavalry, the ultimate just to get away, the mounted archery, and because of that, they get no gank. And Ogre teleports over for nothing. Could have been at least a kill on Emilito, but they used all their CC onto the Hachi, who had plenty of CC immunity and movement. It's a dead gank there for the Yomi Tanuki. Still, though, I like the attempt, right? You're teleporting over, sending your solo laner as quickly as possible or as early as you can, just to look for as much aggression as possible. You don't find a kill, but hey, that teleport doesn't lose you too much farm over on the right side of the map.
Patience right now seems to be the name of the game for the Tanuki. They slowed things down. You'd wanted to see aggression. And, I mean, I will give Europe credit. 6 kills, 11 minutes. High pace. But it is aggression right now from Scarabs that are leading the way. Successful red buff invade might be the last thing Imel gets to do, though. He gets plucked back in. The leap is good. The fire bolts, the fairy bolts, strong, and lock down the dragon for a little bit. Second leap creates a little more distance. There's the fearless, a little too wide. Pull back is good. Imel goes down. And now, do you continue the fight, or do you fall? You might just fall. Good dunk from Nevi. Creates some space and gets a kill onto April, evening this one out 1-1. Zeros needs to disengage. The Ishtar's here. The Aegis is great, but not good enough. Damage just sustains for the Tanuki. Gets themselves a second kill and keeps things in their favor.
Able to trade 1 for 2 with the Solar Scarabs. Look like they are a little bit more healthy to go in for the beacon. The Tanuki are close by. Is anyone going to step up to try and get this meter from ticking downwards? It does look like trying to step up as the call. Nevi recognizes, hey, it's close, but I saw a teleport, and now there's a full health tier here. Definitely the smart call to retreat, and Ogre's got the CC to make sure the beacon should go the way of the Tanuki. But of course, Emilito, if nothing else, is being an annoyance in this game.
You know, that's just the right support style.
Oh,
it feels
100%.
like, right? I mean, look at Aurora. How have people described him? Annoying? Not do just one master. So emulate that as best you can, and that's what Imel's doing, just prolonging, it feels like, what is the inevitable, but also keeping the Tanuki from capturing it so quickly they could maybe rotate in and get a Gold Fury. So keeps things pretty safe for his team. April, though, not ready to let this one lie. Was looking for some pressure, maybe a kill over on left. Unable to lock down E-Chrome, falls back. Now Trelly. We're in, again, an interesting spot, 13 minutes in. Double the kills for the Tanuki, 6-3. But about 1,000 gold down. They need a little bit more. April gets aggressive onto Nevi. Nevi takes a lot. Good pluck, and the damage should be there, but the hammer is good, and April does not seem to have the close gap to get to the Thor. In fact, a little bit of trouble, has to teleport away. The tick damage doesn't quite kill him, but you don't have any health. One auto is all it takes. It's the ult from E-Chrome, and that puts April down in the dirt.
The Susano's been having a tough break since that early start. April has just never had the beads up when needed, and of course, you're getting chain stunned by Emilito, and the ultimate's in from Nevi. Not a great matchup to be in. Maybe a Magi's blessing in the future of April. But so far, the Solar Scarabs have been upping their farm game despite being losing in kills. They've been showing up when needed to. And I think more specifically, have been able to keep their carries alive pretty well. Zeros in particular, sure he's 0-2, but I think this Yu Huang has been very slippery. And of course, E-Chrome on the Hachi has been under a lot of fire. I mean, that whole fight starts. I think April gets very deep in the jungle because he was looking for an attempted kill onto this Hachimon. Doesn't find it, and ends up finding the mean end of some Fafnir stuns, which ended up turning into a kill there for E-Chrome. But Ward Vision is still over on the Gold Fury. The Solar Scarabs know, yeah, we've got the Fafnir transformation. It's not up at the moment, but we could do a Gold Fury very quickly. That's not to say that the Yomi Tanuki don't have that same ability. With the Hydra's Lament there from the Susano, and of course, the shotgun auto attacks from Ishtar. That Fury could burn just as fast for the Yomi Tanuki as well as the Solar Scarabs.
Fury, Pyro, I mean, you know, we used to see for a while Pyro be looked at sometimes earlier than a Gold Fury. Granted, some swap-ups made one a little more worthwhile in one regard, a little more worthwhile in the other. For something like a Pyromancer, you're not killing them for the Pyro, you're killing them for the Runic Bomb. Still, little wiggle room for both of these squads. You know, you were talking, you had, in admittedly a little bit of a joking fashion, but you did say Totem Diff earlier.
Yep.
8-2 right now. It seems negligible. I mean, how much does Totem matter? But gotta imagine some of that factors in early on to the Scarabs' lead. But they were doing that last game. Last time it was 11-1 in favor of Deathwalker. And so if you're looking for a Totem Differ, Deathwalker, top of the list right now, man. He is just controlling that lane. Got a good amount of damage as well. But the Bologna, I'm actually curious. You know, we've seen how Tyr fits into some of these fights. Where does Bologna fit in here? I guess outside of just ulting, looking for a stun onto, say, a Susano, and forcing him to feel a little awkward about it.
I think Deathwalker's job is to do what he just did, but more specifically to streak up, right? Find the carries, disarm, you're going to be out trading them for a bit with your auto attack. And here's a Draconic Transformation from Emilito. Apriel took a lot of damage, but it looks like Picarino is also the target of some CC.
Well, the damage, not really there as far as the follow-up is. Good pluck on Emil. And a good Fearless, and it's a great CC chain from the Tanuki, but not a lot of follow-up available to punish the support for the Scarabs. Instead, they'll have 4 standing strong on right, looking for a Pyromancer pretty quickly. Maybe walking straight past it. I thought for sure, Charlie, that's what we were going to see. Instead, they're going for a retreat. Oracles getting started up on left and taken by the Tanuki. And I'll admit a little bit of being a little flabbergasted. Nothing instead happens after that fight.
Does not. Apriel doesn't have the beads down, didn't want to try and 1v1 E-Chrome because he knew that Nevi could have been close by. That Thor, that Anvil of Dawn is a delete key at the moment with you on beads, and I think that Apriel recognized he does not want to get 100 to 0'd before the fight even begins, so decides against it. But you're right, Pyromancer and Gold Fury are still targets that both of these teams have the ability to go for, but have really not been looking for it at the end of some of these scraps. They've just been continuously looking to try and farm up as much as possible and try and fast track themselves to late game. The mid laners more so than anyone else. I mean, in duo lane, when you lose your tower like this, I think that E-Chrome is feeling a little bit more confident considering he's got the 2-level lead over Streaka, but still. You're always in a dangerous position when you don't have eyes on the jungle and you don't have that tier 1 tower to try and fall back into for safety. So I don't imagine too much scrapping in the duo lane, but mids still could be some place for action. Emilito with a nice hammer and Calvin with a pluck in. Could be just what these guys need to find a fight, but look how far up E-Chrome is. Does Apriel not know he's here?
Should know now, but doesn't seem to want to do too much about it. E-Chrome stays aggressive. Nevi now on this side of the jungle. Bead still down for Apriel. Like you said, that can be a death sentence in and of itself. Teleport and the dash used by the jungler for the Tanuki gets them away and safe. Beacon about to spawn up. Second charge of the beacon this game. First one went the way of the Tanuki. Have to remember move speed, structure damage, a lot that can go for it. Maybe Nevi looking that way with the dunk. The ult not able to find the pressure onto the Tanuki that it needs, but creates some space and acts as a pretty helpful ward. Opens up the conversation. Beacon almost secured here by the Scarabs, but not quite. Nevi now pulled in. Damage is good. Forces the Thor to fall back. The ult not quite enough. But Picarino chases him down. Picarino gets the burn and finds a little more onto Zeros as well. Not able to get the kill onto the mid laner, but the jungler for the Scarabs is gone now. With 5 still alive on the Tanuki, 4 strong. And Calvin knocking on death's door. They fall back. Start capturing the beacon for themselves. Emil's here to play Annoyance. So now is Deathwalker and E-Chrome. Jump in from Emilito onto Streak Up. Damage is there, and immediately Deathwalker does exactly what you wanted to see earlier. Finds him, kills him, and gets him out of there. With Streak Up gone, the Scarabs march forward, start to capture the beacon, hold themselves in a high position. Deathwalker goes for zone. And now with 2 of their carries back and Nevi back on the board, should be a pretty easy confirmation. Picarino in danger as the damage gets thrown his way. But the mid-tier 1 and the beacon are the targets. Well, the beacon should be the target. Once again, back on it are the Scarabs. Tier 1 and mid goes down for the Tanuki. Everyone, sans Calvin, has had to retreat back away. And the Scarabs get themselves the beacon, and Charlie, they're going to look at the Fury as well.
They might as well. Deathwalker shows up with the Shoguns. Plenty of damage. Calvin's the only one who can go in for a steal, but he's level 12. Even if he's able to step up, would not live for very long, so I think probably smart that he stays back and gives this one up. Solar Scarabs able to grab that Gold Fury. And the funny thing is, I was about to dig into Deathwalker for staying over in right lane for so long. He got the tier 1 tower. He was just split pushing. His team needed him. The beacon was so close to being able to get captured, but the Yomi Tanuki didn't put all their bodies onto it. They decided to back, go for lazy backs, go for farm. All the while, Streak Up stays on it a little bit too long because it wasn't captured. Deathwalker gets a free kill and teleports in for that extra beacon. And then you lose the Gold Fury to boot. Pretty sure the Yomi Tanuki could have grabbed that beacon, grouped up together, and left. and they would have lost a lot less. But in this case, you would accept a Pyromancer. Picorino's ultimate, probably not necessary, but wanted to do it before Nevi could have ulted in. And they're able to grab at least a Runic Bomb for their troubles, and that one heads over to Calvin.
Small experience lead, but one nonetheless for the Scarabs. 2 levels for solo, 2 levels in support, and what was for a while there 2 levels, but now 1 for the carries. Fire Giant started up by the Scarabs, and it's already sitting half health, but all members of the Tanuki answer in kind around the FG pit. The ring's still going, and the objective is still being DPS. Finally, dropped by the Scarabs. Nevi looking for a dunk, unable to find anyone for full lockdown. But the team's looking at the Susano, goes in, stun from Deathwalker, couple of autos, and that's all you need to get rid of April. Now the chase is on, looking for Calvin, already low, forces him to fall back instead. Easy enough for the team. Streak Up recognizes a scenario and an opportunity, let's call it, where you need it. Pushes the tier 2 on left, gets some gold for his team, and what otherwise was a losing.
Oh, man.
E-Chrome, whether he overstays his welcome or just gets caught out, either way, killed off thanks to Ogabri. And the Tanuki keep the kill lead 8-6, close this gold gap quite a bit, taking it from what was approaching 6,000 now to 3,000 in favor of the Scarabs still. And they ensure the Fire Giant does not go down.
E-Chrome had relics. That Fearless could have been beads, and there would have been no trouble at all, but I guess didn't think that Picorino had that kind of burst. Either way, falls down. And I think that, that whole scrap towards the Fire Giant, loved the aggression from the Solar Scarabs. They use that Draconic Transformation. April gets zoned out by Deathwalker for so long that Nevi's able to come through and guarantee that kill goes down. This Susano is just, like I said, has been having a rough game. It seems like Emilito, Nevi, and Deathwalker are putting as much CC as possible towards this Susano, and because of that, the Susano hasn't been able to get active. Has been having to watch his positioning constantly, only gets 1 pair of beads, and they're always down. Going from 3-0 to 3-4 is a heavy deficit. It is a complete change of pace.
Changes so much. And as we see here, Shelly, it slows him down, right? I mean, yeah, we were talking, oh, be aggressive, be the leader, be the one running the show.
Now I want him to split push.
Yeah, now just survive, get something done on the map. Exist somewhere. Level 18 to 19, still keeping up in some regards, though it has definitely been a little bit of a struggle. Yet, I can't help, I'm just getting hit with massive deja vu from game 1. I mean, the Tanuki. This time around had a much better early game, but starts to slip. The gold lead goes the other way. They've been fighting a lot more, and they still look good. They're keeping up with the Scarabs and everything but the farm game. In an ideal world for them, they could do something similar, just, without losing the 3 Phoenixes and having the Titan almost die in the process. So maybe try to get something moving over here. Speaking of which, Nevi goes up to the air. Is going to go for a dunk on Streak Up, finds the stun, forces the beads and the ult. Streak Up gets a small stun, but it's no big damage, no big deal for the Solar Scarabs as of now. Fire Giant has been the, I'm not even going to call it primary target, tertiary target, it feels like, for the Scarabs. Consolation prize if they're not able to get any kills. But they're looking for a little bit more. Trying to find a little bit more. Deathwalker, they're taking a lot of poke here. Picorino throwing out the damage necessary for his team. Now the chase is on. Pluck not going to connect from Calvin. And that might be just enough to save Emilito's life. Course thrown out just in case they need the damage. But now the Scarabs put on the back foot. Tanuki use the opportunity. Start up a Pyromancer. They're going to get themselves a second Runic Bomb.
They certainly are. Streak Up did lose the beads, though, during that engagement. E-Chrome also lost the beads because of a blink pluck there from Calvin. And the ultimate in from Streak Up. I'm wondering where the aggression comes through, but Deathwalker and E-Chrome are stepping forward. A stun, perfect. That should be an easy, fearless target. He goes forward, though. E-Chrome's looking to scrap.
And finds a lot of damage onto Picorino in the process, but E-Chrome just cannot get it done here, and unfortunately falls for the Scarabs. Deathwalker tried to save the carry, might just put himself in a bad spot. Death is where he is walking into. Tanuki take him down. They lose April, but they pick up 2 in the process, and 2 big ones at that. Now the question for me is, can they continue some of that aggression? Doesn't seem like the team really wanted to. Back, reset, go for fire. I have to imagine is on their minds with this amount of advantage.
Certainly is. Fire Giant's available. But you lost your jungle, you lost Deathwalker and Ikram if you're the Scarab, so Emilito's just going to sit there and try and cap the beacon by himself for the time being, and actually the Scarabs are on the complete opposite side of the map. So the Tanuki do seem to be going in for the Fire Giant immediately. Does Nevi have an ultimate? No. Ogre blinking in to play zone duty? Yes. It's just going to be Emilito going in for the steal. No one else will be here in time. Unless this Draconic Transformation does its job, which it will, maybe. You got enough time to try and go in for the steal now.
Fafnir hammers, or I guess in this case the Dragon Spit, has been insane and has stolen a lot in the past, but they're just melting through the health bar. Don't need the help. And they're going to pick up the kill onto Immel. Fire Giant had been dropped for a little bit. Now Nevi has had the time to get the ult online. Fire's getting low. They have to be careful. The dunk comes down. The damage is there. Tanuki secure the Fire Giant in the 50-50, and they get a kill to boot on the jungler. Nevi put into the ground, and now the surge forward. Can you find the CC? Lockdown zeros could have been massive, but instead, the team with FG gets to cycle around, figure out where they want to go. Tier 2 standing on right. Titans about to clash in mid. A lot of options for them to work with here, Chelly. Plenty of room to wiggle through.
Yeah, I'm thinking grouping up with your Titan, probably the smart call, especially with that Fire Giant buff going your way. Nevi lands with the Anvil of Dawn, attempts to go in for the steal, doesn't find it, thinks he can just hammer out, but a beautiful knock up into a pluck makes sure that he's not able to get out safely. So Thor is going to be gone for 20 more seconds. At the very least, Yomi Tanuki are able to kill the Scarabs Titan out of base, which is not as cool as killing it in base, I might add, but still, trying to stop the siege, definitely a smart call. And there's 2 more Tier 2 towers to try and go through. All the while, Deathwalker's over on the right side of the map split pushing, so with Thor and Bellona gone, this Tier 2 should go down for free. Thor is arriving, though. Nevi's making his presence known because he spawned in on the map. I guess best case scenario, I was going to say you trade Tier 2s, but the second you see Deathwalker over in right lane, you go in for a Phoenix, and that's a bit different. So the Yomi Tanuki, I doubt, push in with this Titan. Probably just watch it, and then go in for that Primal Fury. Definitely a smart call. Gold, not out of the woods yet. Gold lead is still something that's extremely important, especially with no one sitting at full build just yet, except for this Bellona.
Yeah, it took us another 6 minutes, I believe, before we started seeing some full builds last game. If not a little longer, right? I mean, not just hitting 35. You might need to hit 38 before you're feeling confident. And then to get it to everybody, those supports take a little while to get full builds. So gold, like you said, still not only important, still not even that much. I mean, the Scarabs were pretty far in the head. And if you take into account the full swing, I mean, it's almost 8,000 full gold from one side to the other. But now you only find yourself a 4,000 gold lead for the Tanuki. 29 minutes in. Single tier 2 standing over on right. Still a little wiggle room with this FG. Nogabri has been playing bully onto Ikram. Might be able to find something here. A good Fearless.
He's stalling for a reason.
And is getting the team over here. Looks for some CC, forces Ikram to fall back. Teleport's good, knock-up. Not quite enough, but that's both relics used by the carry of the Scarabs. Turns around to try and get aggressive. Emilito goes for the Draconic form, but the damage, oh my god, Picorino just erases Ikram 100-0 like it's nothing. The mage gets some work done, and now Deathwalker tries to get the kill out there, but walks once again into his own demise. Emilito, Fearless to the wall, and a triple for Streak Up does what might as well end this game. I mean, you can march forward 40 seconds with 4 gone. The Tanuki chasing Zeros. Maybe for a little bit of fun, maybe because he's on the way, but causing a little bit of trouble. And this, in my mind, Shelly, is where the paths have to break. Don't get distracted. Play aggressive and play the way you need. Staggered out, killed off, deicide for the Tanuki. And with a Phoenix going down, and 20 seconds before anyone's back, a 2-0. And now 2 sets for the bottom-seeded team, or sorry, the 5th-seeded team coming into this gauntlet. Shelly, they're making waves, and they're continuing their run.
They certainly are. Despite the chat vote putting a lot of pressure on the Solar Scarab to take this one away, it does not happen. And again, 5-0 from Picorino. Streak up ending with a triple kill. The carries really were lifting the weight of the world there. I was talking about how annoying Emilito was on that Fafnir. I mean, Calvin on the Sobek too. There was a lot of CC coming through that was just extremely difficult to try and deal with in this case. Both supports, I think, got to have a little bit of pressure put their way because of how much the beads burn consistently. And unfortunately there, Echrome was just a little bit too far up. Ogabri says, hey, I'm gonna make sure that you stay exactly where you are for the next 30 seconds. And they sat around to fight a little bit. They're like, how long will it take for the rest of the team to show up? Turns out they can get there pretty quickly. And of course, that Baba Yaga, you highlighted the damage, comes through and makes sure that with both relics down, that was immediately a 4v5, and then everyone else sort of just overstayed their welcome.
Yeah, I would have had two others on the list of, okay, that's going to be who kills Echrome before Picorino.
Yep.
But Picorino's loop around, and I think we're going to see it, right? Early game, Susano, a lot of credit. I think Picorino, though, damage-wise, has to be on the list of just absolute insanity, absolute benefits here for the Tanuki. And I'm really curious to see the full-on damage numbers. I didn't look at them at the end. I was too distracted by all the glorious fighting that was going on the screen to see what Picorino was able to do, because by the time that this game was closing up, Streak Up was hitting kind of hard, but I feel like was a kind of half and half, a little damage, a little CC. You get Calvin doing CC, you get Ogabri doing CC. Held to the point where April, a little bit of damage, but a lot of CC. It feels like Picorino was a really driving factor to get some of these kills and really knock down what the others were setting up.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think that, in the battle of CC, which I think this game was, a lot of these targets were, hey, are beads up? If so, we can win the fight. If not, maybe we should play a little bit less aggressive. It did seem like the Yomi Tanuki were able to collapse on some of these targets a bit easier, and I think that's thanks to not only what Calvin was able to do, already highlighted the Sobek, but Ogabri on the tier, right? That single target CC, sending these tanks back towards you. Emilito 0-4, of course, Deathwalker 2-2 there, but Echrome was also the target of a lot of this CC as well. You were asking for the damage numbers, 23,000, beat out only else by Echrome on that Hachiman. So in the right place at the right time, a part of 15 kills there. That is all of them, essentially, there from Picorino. That's exactly what you need. I mean, that's the kind of Baba Yaga performance you're looking for, especially if you want to keep climbing up in this gauntlet.
I would say two massive goose eggs where you want them, right? Death Column for Ogabri, nothing.
Yep.
Nobody was able to take down the tier, and then the Death Column as well for the mid laner. Nobody's able to touch him. Well played, again, from the Tanuki. And game one, you have to imagine, set one, long set. I mean, 30-minute game 1, 41, I believe, was game 2, 55 for game 3. Then you come in, you play a 50-minute game here, getting a nice speedy one to close this out probably feels pretty good for them because, as we mentioned, it's a gauntlet. It is a long run, and you have to keep on playing the more you win. So you knock out the bolts, what do you win? You win the Scarabs. You knock out the Scarabs, what do you win? Well, you win what you're going to be doing up next here, taking on the Tartarus Titans, the 4th seed coming into this. Again, a team that if you've been watching Europe and watching today, a lot has changed, but Lastimics, Mastkill, Zany, Agent, a lot of names here that have been very active in the scene for a while. Trelly found a lot of success in the past as well. There's a reason they're the 4th seed, and so definitely something that the Tanuki, if they want to continue this run, it's another bump in the road that they have to overcome.
Yep, but to the Tanuki's credit, so are the guys they just beat.
True.
That I could say all the same about those guys, and they were able to look at I'm not going to say make it look easy. It was still a hard-fought game for sure, but at the end of this, I think I'm going to say the same thing I said going into this matchup. Momentum's on their side, right? Especially triumphing over a team like that. You think, hey, can we really beat a team this low-seeded? Then you beat another one. You say, oh, we beat one up. What's the difference, right? When you're just climbing one more up in the bracket. I hope, at the very least, that the confidence is on their side because they deserve it after what they've been able to put on so far.
Well, and the conversation we were kind of having coming into this was, at this point, you've played 5 games today, right? I mean, what's a 6th, a 7th, maybe an 8th? I mean, granted, it's going to be a long time of SMITE, right? You've already been going for quite a few hours. But the question is whether the warm-up outweighs the fatigue, and I guess that's what we're going to find out. We're going to kick it to a quick break, and then, of course, the Tanuki will be coming back, this time to try and take on their new opponents, the Tartarus Titans.